This is Judie Mancuso, and I am the founder, CEO, and president of Social Compassion and Legislation. This is our first podcast, and what we plan to do is update everyone on current events that has to do with animal rights, various legislation we may be working on that we need help with, overall, everything to do with animals. And with me is Nicholas Sackett, who has been with our group for 10 years now. He is an attorney and a registered lobbyist in Sacramento, our boots on the ground, helping us shepherd this very important animal rights legislation through. So far, since our founding, we have sponsored, and we'll get into what sponsored means, 80 bills, and we've gotten over 30 signed into law. Just give us comments or things you'd like us to talk about. So, Nick.
I'm excited about this new venture to be able to update our supporters and followers and reach new followers and listeners to educate them on what's going on in the animal rights legislative world in California and beyond.
And beyond, yeah, and get their help and support. There's so many people across the United States, across the world, that are doing really great things for the animals. And this week on social media, as we were posting our own stuff at Social Compassion, we stumbled upon quite a few posts that were a surprise to us about things people are doing across the world, and also different news articles that were directly related to bills we have done in the past, or laws we've passed. And so I'm going to dive in right now. And the first one was a couple posts on France and Spain on various animal legislation that they have now in law. With Instagram, Facebook, you see these various news articles, and the question is it real? And if it's real, how much of it is real? Or what's not real? So I asked Nick to look into France and Spain, and he's going to give you an update on what those laws really do right now versus maybe what the headline was. So, Nick, go
Sure.
ahead.
Thanks, Judy. So the first one that you sent me was a post that said that France passed a law that made those found guilty of pet abandonment liable for a fine up to 45,000 euros, which right now equals about $52,000, and up to 3 years in prison.
Well, that's huge.
Right. So those are pretty stiff penalties for pet abandonment. And I found it true. That is the law now in France.
Go France.
Right. So that's fantastic. And actually, in my research, I found that there are a couple other European countries that have similarly stiff penalties, including the Netherlands, which we might talk about later. But thumbs up to France.
And what about Spain?
So Spain, there was a headline that Spain passed a law that says pets are now family. What I found is that the law was passed in 2022. Spain did pass a law, but from what I could see, I'm unsure of how exactly the new categorization of pets as family will actually work in the real world. What I did see is that in some civil cases, such as divorce, the parties in the divorce can now file a petition to the court to ask for custody of a pet or sometimes shared custody. So in those cases, that is what this law will apply to. I am not sure. I couldn't find any other examples of where else it could apply, but nevertheless, I do think it sets a good precedent to say that pets are indeed family.
Wow, that is amazing. So it may be narrow towards divorces, or maybe it's broader than that, but we couldn't find what else it might cover. Is that right? Do I have the
Yeah,
correct
yeah. If there's
understanding
anyone
there?
out there listening that is from Spain or knows how to do a little bit more research in Spanish, we would love to hear from you.
Let us know. Now, the next one, this is really exciting, about Vogue eliminating fur from their magazine, from fashion shows. And this is an issue that our group has been working on for quite some time. And I'll let Nick tell you about the bill that we did that was passed into law, a landmark bill, and is still, California is the only state in the nation to have it. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, that's right. We were the sponsors of AB 273, which was authored by, at the time, Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez, which made California the first state to ban recreational and commercial fur trapping. As you reminded me, Judy, at the time we were sending our pelts. The market for our pelts really wasn't here in the United States. It was in Russia and China. So, in essence, we were allowing folks to cruelly trap animals in our state and then make a profit by selling those abroad. And so that bill passed in 2019. Sadly, we're still the only state that has passed that law. So, fingers crossed that some other states will pick that up.
Well, no, this is a good time to say that if you're watching and you would like to copy one of these laws that we talk about, our website, socialcompassionandlegislation.org, we do have all of our bills up there under our campaigns, and it gives a link to each bill and a fact sheet. So, as Nick just said, we're hoping other states follow. We make it really easy on you. Come to our website, go look at our campaigns, click on it, and you'll have the text to the law. And you can then use it for your own state and solicit assembly member, senator, whomever to carry that bill for you. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so that was also the same year that California banned the sale of new fur in a bill, AB 44, carried by Assemblymember Laura Friedman. That was a huge coalition of various animal rights organizations. I think the fur issue has been at the forefront of the animal rights movement.
It was, and it continues on. And that is a good segue to an ABC story that came out regarding all the new animal laws. In this segment, they cover our two bills that are very important bills. And one is Senate Bill 221, and the other one is Assembly Bill 478. That bill addresses all the loopholes, the things that weren't there at all, etc., during the disaster. When the fires started, the first thing is that people needed help evacuating their animals and didn't know where to turn to get help with evacuation. And then once they were evacuated, where to go temporarily with the animals. And once the flames went out, local jurisdictions, LA, Pasadena, Altadena, were all scrambling because it was an enormous fire like we've never seen. But this bill addresses those deficiencies and sets up a framework in order to help evacuees, to help people find their animals, rescue their animals, etc. And Nick can tell you about the other bill that we got signed into law, which is Senate Bill 221.
Yeah, Senate Bill 221 seek to fill a gap in criminal law. So before the bill was passed, the criminal stalking penalty in California did not include threats against someone's pet. So if there was a stalker, the two components for them to be found guilty of stalking required repeated behavior and threatening behavior. And so let's just give an example. There's a stalker, he or she, but unfortunately, many of these cases it's a he, um, threatens an ex's life over and over again. That would be considered stalking. But if that same person threatened their dog's life over and over again and said, I'm gonna murder, I'm gonna kill your dog when you're not home, or, you better watch out, I'm gonna break your dog's legs when you don't not looking. That was not covered behavior. That person could do that. unfortunately. So Riverside DAs approached us, and Senator Ochoa Bogue approached us to help with SB 221 to make sure that that loophole was closed. And thankfully, we were, it was tough. It took a couple years, but we got that bill passed, and now threats against someone's pet is included in stalking behavior, criminal stalking behavior.
And it was so important because there was cases that the Riverside DA had that if they could have intervened prior with a law such as this, they could have saved the animal's life, the person's life. So the real life examples behind needing this legislation were there. They were convincing. And we finally got the bill through, and it will be law come January 1st, 2026, along with AB 478. I want to segue to another news article, but unfortunately, this has to do with a bill that we did, but it did not get signed into law, and it didn't even make it out of the first committee. And this has to do with, if you're familiar with state fairs and these junior agricultural groups where kids raise animals for 6 months and then they enter them into the fair and there's a contest and there's a winner of that contest and then that animal goes to slaughter and the person that has the highest bid on the animal gets the animal back as meat. Okay, this is pretty heart-wrenching for a lot of families that get attached to the animal. We had big opposition from big ag groups. And this week, the LA Times came out with an investigation they did on California county fairs. And it turns out these folks are pretty bad actors that they cover in this article and just happen to be the same crew that made it impossible for us to get our first committee hearing. And Nick, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. Um, I think what the article really highlighted was the culture, to hell with what the parents thought, to hell with actual law, considering the fact that the family had the animal, had taken the animal away, and it was still their property. No, they didn't care about that. They ordered the sheriff's department and said that it was stolen property and that they should seize it, and the sheriff's department did. So it just goes to show you the culture within the industry is rotten. It's
And the
really
cruelty. I
rotten.
mean, Cedar the Goat, which our bill was modeled after that particular case, but there were so many other cases like it. The family wanted the goat back, and instead, as Nick described, ended up, the family took the cedar from an area because they weren't going to relinquish it. The police go after it, very dramatic, get the goat back. So this bill would have really prevented a scene like that from ever happening again for these poor children to grow up with that on their conscience that they allowed their animal to go to slaughter when, they didn't want it to, had no recourse, a bit.
We were the outsiders, and as you can see from that article, it's very insular. You have to be in the club to get what you want in that sphere.
And that they all worked together to block and were evidently all taking money from each other, all the missing money. Read the article, you'll see they mention Cedar in there because that turned out to be a lawsuit that then cost that county over $300,000. So, it's a big deal. And you see what we're up against with the opposition. So this past week, December 10th was National Animal Rights Day. And yeah, we applaud it. We're a part of it. And for the past 18 years, I founded my group and to protect animals through laws, through legislation. And I figured I could make the biggest bang for my buck in doing so. And over the years, so many people have told me that I should write a book. I should write a book because, we've gone where others haven't gone and been consistent. So finally, I did. And it's called Because They Need Us, My Political Fight to Save Animals. For National Animal Rights Day, we honor it. We're there for the voiceless. And please, if you want to learn more about how to save animals, how to get involved advocacy wise, my book is available on our website. And so I think that's the wrap up for the week. I'm looking at my list. We could, of course, talk about a whole lot more, but I think we can stop there. So we're signing off our first podcast. And Nick, would you like to say any final words?
If you're out there and you want to learn more about what we do, go to socialcompassioninlegislation.org and go to sign up for our newsletter where we send out a lot of email blasts, also updating on other news. So see you next time.
Thank you.